So we have some important news on the current efforts to remove the remaining restrictions on suppressors under the NFA. A new lawsuit has now been launched to strike down state bans on suppressors, and this is in direct response to the NFA tax changes that just passed in the Big Beautiful Bill, changing the tax from $200 to $0. So let's break down what is happening in this new lawsuit. Now, real quick, if you're watching this channel, then obviously it's safe to say that you care about the Second Amendment and your rights. Now, here's the thing, even law-abiding gun owners are ending up in jail because they make a bunch of critical mistakes. And those are mistakes that you don't even realize that you're making or that you don't understand that they're illegal. So I put together a free resource called the Legal Survival Guide. It's aimed to help you guys avoid all of those traps that maybe you could fall in. It takes about 2 minutes to read. It's just a simple PDF, and it really could save you years behind bars. I made it to help you guys, again, completely free to download using the link down below. It's just something that I wanted to provide you guys for free so that you can have it in your phone or maybe print it out. And there's a little card also in there that you can put in your wallet to give you additional resources to help you in situations. Obviously, not meant to be legal advice. I'm not your attorney. This isn't an attorney-client relationship, but I wanted to provide you guys some free resources to prevent you falling in some bad situations. Again, if you're interested, click the links down below. It's completely free to do. All you have to do is enter your email to get that free PDF. So as I mentioned in the intro, in this video, we need to talk about what is happening right now in response to the Hearing Protection Act and the SHORT Act, which recently passed in HR 1, the Big Beautiful Bill. Now, if you've been following the channel for a while, you will know that recently HR 1 passed in the version of the HPA and the SHORT Act that were included in the Big Beautiful Bill, or now the Big Beautiful Act, were simply the reduction of the tax. So under the new law, the NFA tax for SBRs, SBSs, AOWs, and suppressors has now been reduced from $200 to $0. Now, in my opinion, that's kind of a half measure, and unfortunately, you had rhinos in Congress who are unwilling to press that issue and get the full versions of the bill that we actually wanted, essentially removing SBRs, SBSs, and suppressors from the NFA entirely. They were also unwilling to remove the Senate parliamentarian who was responsible for striking out the full versions of the language that we wanted. So that was unfortunate, and that's really all we got was the reduction of the tax. However, this fight is far from over. In response to the $0 tax language change that happened, and that was just passed into law, there's been multiple lawsuits that have now been launched against the NFA. One of the ones was filed by GOA, FRAC, Palmetto State Armory, and Silencer Co., and they filed that lawsuit against the ATF in the Northern District of Texas, so they filed in a federal court. That lawsuit there directly challenges the remaining NFA registry component in light of the new tax change when it went from $200 to $0. So that is a direct challenge against the remaining registry and all the restrictions that are still included in the NFA. However, now a different lawsuit has been launched to directly challenge state suppressor bans. So this is interesting because now you have an overarching challenge to the NFA in the remaining registry component, and that is down in a federal court in Texas. And now you have SAF, ANJRPC, ASA, and the NRA who have joined together to file a lawsuit against state bans on suppressors, and this is happening in the state of New Jersey. Now, this case is titled Padua versus Plotkin. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but this was again filed in a federal district court in New Jersey. This lawsuit directly challenges the New Jersey ban on the purchase and possession of suppressors in the state of New Jersey. The plaintiff used the recent changes to the NFA tax requirement as a mechanism to open up a new challenge to remove these type of state bans. In this lawsuit, the plaintiffs, including SAF, argue that the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Under this constitutional provision, the peaceable citizens of this nation have a fundamental, constitutionally guaranteed right to keep and bear common arms for defense of self and family and for all other lawful pursuits. Despite this constitutional guarantee, the state has enacted and defendants enforce a prohibition on the possession of firearm suppressors in the state of New Jersey. Indeed, the federal government has now conceded that suppressors are entitled to Second Amendment protections. And there they cite directly to the Fifth Circuit Peterson challenge, where you have the Trump DOJ recently admit that suppressors are protected arms, they're protected under the Second Amendment, and that states cannot outright ban these protected arms, and to do so would be unconstitutional. They go on to state in this lawsuit that, as a result, the federal government has insisted a ban on the possession of suppressors, like the state's ban here in New Jersey, would be unconstitutional. They go on to argue in this new lawsuit that New Jersey's ban on suppressors implicates the Second Amendment's plain text. By banning suppressors, New Jersey effectively bans suppressed firearms, and suppressed firearms are arms. Alternatively, suppressors facilitate armed self-defense by enhancing the effectiveness of firearms for self-defense and mitigating the hearing risks associated with using firearms. Given their integral use with firearms, it is unsurprising that federal statutes treat them as such. Therefore, by prohibiting plaintiffs from possessing and carrying suppressors, defendants have prevented plaintiffs from keeping and bearing arms within the meaning of the amendment's text. As a result, to justify its regulation, the government must demonstrate that the regulation is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearms regulations, but they state defendants cannot meet that burden. They go on to argue that the laws in New Jersey criminalize suppressors despite the fact that they are clearly in common use. They argue that suppressors have been broadly permitted and commonly used for over 100 years. Suppressors are widely permitted throughout the entire United States, and contrary to what New Jersey does with their suppressor ban, there are 42 states within the United States that you pretty much allow their citizens to possess and use suppressors, and they recognize that they are protected arms. They state that to lawfully own a suppressor under federal law, individuals must register the suppressor, obtain permission, submit fingerprints, and pay a $200 tax, but that's recently been changed by Congress by passing the $0 tax, which goes into effect January 1st, 2026. So also they're using that there, and they changed the NFA through the big beautiful bill to open the door to re-challenge this whole suppressor issue and this issue of states outright banning the purchase and possession of suppressors. They also point out in this lawsuit that suppressors are widely permitted all around the world. So not only is there a clear common use within the United States, there's also clear precedent outside the US, and there are plenty of other nations which clearly allow the use of suppressors. They're in common use, and many other countries actually have zero restrictions and regulations on those items. They conclude the complaint by asking for two forms of relief. First, that the court here declare that the ban on commonly possessed suppressors and all other related laws, regulations, policies, and procedures, that they violate the right to keep and bear arms and the rights guaranteed by the Second Amendment. And then they say in response to that, the second thing they ask for is the court to enjoin all of the defendants and each of the defendants' respective employees, law enforcement officers, agents, and representatives from acting in concert and participating with the enforcement of this New Jersey ban on suppressors. So in essence, they ask for the court here to strike down the law based on it violating the Second Amendment. And then as a response to that, they want them to block the state of New Jersey and all of its law enforcement officers from enforcing this aspect of the law. So this is an important challenge. We've already seen GOA and other orgs file challenges in these Texas federal courts to remove the remaining registration components of the NFA in light of the $0 tax change. And now you have SAF and all of these other organizations like the NRA and ASA who are filing a lawsuit in a state where they outright ban the purchase and possession of suppressors, and they're asking for the court there to re-review the suppressor ban issue and find that suppressors cannot be outright banned, and to do so would be unconstitutional. This is kind of a two-pronged attack in response to the Big Beautiful Bill and the NFA tax change. I would also suspect that soon similar lawsuits will be filed in other states. And then I would also suspect that we would see similar lawsuits, get sprung up in regards to SBRs in states that outright ban the purchase and possession of SBRs. And they're going to probably use the NFA tax change to bring those new challenges. So this is a really solid case, and now we're going to be waiting to see, how this challenge develops. I would also suspect that in this case and other cases, we will see the Trump DOJ jump in support of removing those state suppressor bans. The Trump DOJ has already, signaled that states cannot outright ban suppressors. We've seen them jump in and file amicus briefs in states where there are challenges to, assault weapon bans or rifle bans and magazine bans. We've seen the Trump DOJ say that those type of statewide bans are unconstitutional, and I would suspect that they do the same thing in these lawsuits challenging suppressors and SBRs. So this is the new state suppressor ban that was filed in response to the Big Beautiful Bill and the $0 tax change that passed. And as we get more information, as it develops more, I will let you guys know. If you like this video and you would like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to simply subscribe to the channel. Also, you can check out my website, armscholar.com, where you can get the free legal guide. All you have to do is put in your email and you get a free PDF of some legal information. Of course, I'm not your attorney, but it's just some educational information that you can look at. And then also we have some daily deals over there where you can check out to save some money. So as always, thank you guys so much for all of your support, but never forget this nation was built by Armed Scholars, and this nation will be maintained by Armed Scholars.